Good evening, everyone. Today we will learn about the principles of population genetics in animal, especially animal genetics and breeding is concerned. And the principles of this thing will include an overview of concepts, application, and implication of this particular thing in the animal genetics and breeding. Then the population genetics studies genetic variations within populations and how they change over time due to the factors like the mutation, then selection, then genetic drift and the gene flow. And these principles help us to understand the genetic structure of populations and their evolutionary dynamics. Then the gene pool and allele frequency is also the terminology. Then the gene pool is so total genetic information on a particular population. Then allele frequency is proportion of a specific allele in the proportion. Then challenges in allele frequencies indicate evolutionary changes and the guide in breeding strategies, especially the cattle. Then Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium is allele and genotype frequencies remain constant without evolutionary process. Then it provides the baseline for detecting evolutionary changes and the deviations always indicate the influences like the mutation, then selection or the migration. Then, coming to the mutation and natural selection, it's a process introduces new genetic variation into the gene pool. Then, the natural selection is a process in which the favors traits that enhance survival and the reproduction. Then, drives adaptation by promoting the advantageous traits. Then, genetic drift and gene flow is the one random changes in allele frequencies significant in small populations, whereas the gene flow is transfer of genes between the populations through the migration that increases genetic diversity and prevents harmful mutations. Then selective breeding and genetic improvement, it enhances the traits like the milk production, meat quality, and disease resistance. And it uses the genomic and marker assisted selection for precise breeding strategies. Then the domestication and breed formation always it traces the genetic changes, which distinguishing domesticated breeds from their wild ancestors. And many of the breeds have been already evolved from their wild ancestors. And it helps in developing and maintaining animal breeds for the specific roles, maybe meat, milk, and egg, etc. Then we need to conserve the genetic and genetic adaptation, which is vital for designing strategies to maintain genetic diversity in the endangered species. And the studies of genetic adaptations to different environment and also the climates. Then animal health and disease resistance. This identifies genetic markers linked to the disease resistance, especially in case of the animal. And it also facilitates the breeding strategies to enhance health and productivity also. Then the hybridizations, then speciation and forensic applications are also there about the population genetics to which this examines the impact of the hybridization on species evaluation. Then also lacks the illegal trade of the wildlife through genetic evidence, especially in case of the forensic evidence based things. Then the management for sustainability and also the supporting the sustainable livestock production and genetic diversity with the parallel with that of the principles of population genetics to ensure resilient and adaptable animal population. Hence, the principle of population genetics. These provide a comprehensive framework for understanding how genetic variation influence the traits, health, and evolution of the different animal populations. And also, the applying these principles, then scientists and breeders can enhance the productivity, adaptability, then sustainability in livestock and other domesticated animals, while also preserving the biodiversity in case of the wild animals. So, as a technology advances, the integration of population genetics, as you know very well, with genomic tools will play an increasingly significant role in shaping the future of animal genetics, ensuring the resilient and genetically diverse populations capable of thriving in diverse environments. Then there are certain key aspects of the population genetics when we come into the cattle breeding. And we need to understand the genetic variations in case of the crucial success of breeding programs, as it is provides the basis for selecting and enhancing the desirable traits in case of the cattle. Then the population genetics studies the distribution of genes within the cattle population and identifies the genetic differences that affect traits like milk production, growth rate, and fertility, then the feed efficiency and disease resistance also. So, this is the basic concepts of the population genetics. Then, by understanding how these genetic variations occur and are the traits, rate, fertility, etc. Then, by understanding how these genetic variations occur and are inherited, especially the cattle breeders or the animal breeders can make informed decision to improve the traits that are economically important to the cattle. And selective breeding and the trait improvement. Now it's a concept of the selective breeding era, and we can selectively breed certain cattle breeds, sheep breed, goat, etc. for fulfilling our aim of getting either more milk or more meat, etc., or sometimes the woolen also. Then the selective breeding involves a specific bulls will be chosen and cows with desirable genetic traits to produce offspring with improved performance in areas like meat quality, milk yield, or reproductive efficiency. Also, then population genetics provides the scientific basis for understanding which genes are responsible for these traits and how they can be passed down to the next generation is concerned. And tools like genomic selection and marker assisted selection are used to identify the best animals for breeding by analyzing their genetic profiles. So we are going to choose a best animal among a big population and propagating the genes into the subsequent generations. And this approach increases the accuracy of breeding decisions and accelerates the genetic progress in a herd. Then genomic selection in case of cattle breeding is it's a powerful technique that uses informations from the entire genome to predict the genetic potential of individual animals. It relies the single nucleotide polymorphism, that's also shortened as SNPs, which are the variations in the deoxyribonucleic acid sequence that can be linked to specific traits in case of the cattle. Whereas the single nucleotide polymorphism data, if it is analyzed, the breeders can select animals with the best genetic potential even before they reach the maturity, thus reducing the generation interval and reducing lot of time and increasing the speed of genetic improvement in traits like the milk production, growth rate, and also the another parameter called as the genetic resistance to the diseases. So then another added advantage of the population genetics is inbreeding management. How to manage this inbreeding because it is becoming a problem everywhere. So the population genetics is help when inbreeding occurs when closely related animals are mated, leading to a reduction in genetic diversity and an increase in the chances of offspring inheriting harmful genetic mutation or disorders. So, the population genetics helps in monitoring inbreeding levels within the cattle populations and providing the strategies to minimize inbreeding depression, which can cause reduced fertility, lower milk yields, and higher susceptibility to the diseases. And techniques like the pedigree analysis and genomic information are used to calculate the inbreeding coefficient, then guiding the breeders how to make the decisions that maintain genetic diversity and also improve the herd's overall growth. So, or else the population means the multiple type of the individual growth. Then heterosis, it's also called as hybrid vigor in cattle. So heterosis or hybrid vigor is the phenomenon where crossbred animals exhibit superior performance compared to their pure breed counterparts in the traits like the growth rate, fertility, and the disease resistance. So, if we come to the population genetic principles, are used to design crossbreeding strategies that maximize hybrid vigor, enhancing productivity and resilience in case of the cattle. Then crossbreeding programs like those involving breeds such as the Holstein, then another very popular breed, Jersey, Angus, or Brahman capitalize the genetic strengths of each breed, leading to improved traits in the offspring. Then there is disease resistance, especially in case of animals, which always increases the animal health. Then population genetics plays a vital role in identifying the genetic markers associated with resistance to diseases that commonly affect such as the mastitis, you know it very well, foot and mouth, then bovine respiratory disorder, different type of the bovine respiratory disorders are there, they can be controlled. And by selecting animals with natural resistance to these diseases, for example, the FMD, mastitis, etc., the breeders can reduce the need of veterinary interventions and lower the genetic healthcare and improve animal welfare. Then genetic selection for disease resistance also contributes to the sustainable cattle farming practices by reducing the reliance and on antibiotic and other chemical treatments, which is beneficial for both the environment and also the food safety. Then use of genetic evaluation tools, especially in case of the population genetics. Then the modern cattle breeding heavily relies on advanced genetic evaluation tools that use data from population genetics to assess the genetic potential of the different type of the animals. Then tools like estimated breeding values EBVs and genomic breeding values are used to predict the animal's ability to pass on desirable traits to its offspring. And these evaluations are based on both pedigree information and genomic data, allowing breeders to make more accurate selection and decisions, and thus enhancing the genetic gains in productivity and also in case of the efficiencies. Then the how to manage the genetic diversity in case of a wide cattle populations. Then maintaining genetic diversity in cattle the population is very much crucial for long-term breeding success, not the short term, and adaptability to changing environment conditions. Then the population genetics principles help breeders to monitor genetic diversity levels and implement strategies to prevent the loss of valuable genes that may be needed for future adaptations. So this is also another important thing in case of cattle population genetics. Then genetic diversity also play say key role in ensuring that cattle populations are resilient to the new type of the diseases. For example, then also the environmental changes and the challenges posed by the climate change. So new diseases means suppose it is a lumpy skin disease and we need to find which animal traits or the breeds are more resistant and we need to find the crossbreeding program. And apart from this one, the genetic biodiversity plays a key role in ensuring the cattle populations are resilient to new diseases, the environmental changes, and the challenges posed by the climatic change. Then the role in sustainable cattle breeding, the population genetics supports the development of sustainable breeding programs that aim to produce cattle with improved efficacy in feed utilization, then lower greenhouse gas production emission. Then the greater adaptability to any adverse effect of the environmental changes. Then sustainable breeding strategies help the optimize resources that use reduce the environmental impact of the cattle farming and contribute to the greater extent to the global food security by increasing the productivity of cattle herds in a more eco-friendly manner. So these are the role in sustainable cattle breeding, the cattle population genetics. So it also integrates the population genetics with sustainability goals and the breeders can focus on long-term improvements of the breeds, both economic profitability, then environmental responsibility also because of the we need to reduce the greenhouse gases like methane, then the carbon dioxide, etc. Then predicting future trends and evolution in case of the cattle breeding. Then population genetics enables the prediction of future trends in cattle breeding. Then why it is required? It helps to anticipate how traits will evolve under different selection pressure. It allows the breeders to simulate various breeding scenarios, predicting the genetic progress over generations and the impact of selection strategies on the herd's genetic makeup. And this predictive ability is crucial for developing the strategies that are not only effective in the present but also it is adaptable to future challenges in case of the cattle production and also the increasing market demands, especially for sheep and goat husbandry is concerned. There is a lot of market is there and it has got its own value. Then coming to the conclusion of the population genetics in relation to the cattle or animal genetics is concerned. So it is a population genetics is a cornerstone of modern cattle breeding, offering a comprehensive understanding of how genetic variations influence the traits and how these variations can be harnessed to improve the productivity, health, and sustainability of the cattle. Then, if you apply the principles of population genetics, then the cattle breeders can make precise decisions that lead to faster genetic progress, enhanced disease resistance, better adaptation rate, or sustaining the climatic changes and also improved overall performance of the cattle herds. So this also is another scope of application of the population genetics. And this scientific approach ensures that cattle breeding practices are not only efficient and profitable but also aligned with long-term goals for sustainable agriculture and animal husbandry, and also the welfare issues in case of the India is concerned. Then, so by this we will conclude the topic of the population genetics. And tomorrow at the same time we will meet. Thank you. Bye.